I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. My name's Mark, and for years I honestly believed I had a pretty stable, even boring marriage with Lisa. We met in college, got married right after, and for a while everything seemed fine, or at least I thought it was. She was the classic high-maintenance wife, bitchy when she didn't get her way, quick with excuses, and always acting like I was lucky to have her. But I loved her, or at least I thought I did, and I convinced myself that the petty fights and her attitude were just her way of keeping things interesting. We had a decent life, a nice house, decent jobs, a small circle of friends. But a few months ago, I started noticing subtle changes. She'd be secretive about her phone, sneaking off into another room, deleting messages, or just outright ignoring my questions. At first, I told myself she was just stressed with work. She's a lawyer, always busy. But then I'd catch her in little lies. Things she'd say didn't add up. She started canceling plans last minute, claiming she had a lot on her plate, and her temper got worse than usual. One night I came home early from a business trip. I wanted to surprise her, maybe suggest we go out or do something fun. When I got home, the house was dead silent. Usually she'd be waiting for me or at least have some wine poured. Instead, I saw her purse on the kitchen counter and I noticed something strange. A lipstick stain on a napkin, right next to her phone. It was unfamiliar, a bright red I didn't recognize. I brushed it off, thinking maybe it was from a night out with her friends or something. But then I saw the unread texts on her phone. Nothing overtly incriminating, just a string of flirty messages from someone named James, who kept calling her babe and asking when they'd see each other again. That was enough to make my stomach turn. I felt a cold sweat start to form, and I knew I was onto something. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but the signs were piling up. She had been different lately, more dismissive, more distant, and now actively hiding something. When I confronted her about the texts, she shrugged and called me paranoid, said I was imagining things or that I was overreacting, but I could see the lie in her eyes. She called me insecure, said I was making a mountain out of a molehill, and that I was crazy for even thinking she'd cheat on me. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything in my head. The lies, the secrecy, the way she flinched when I asked about her phone. I had to know what was really going on, even if I didn't want to admit it to myself. I started digging a little deeper, checking her social media, her emails, even her private messages. That's when I found it more than just those texts. There were pictures of her with James, kissing, holding hands, and even a few explicit ones. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. All my suspicions were confirmed. She'd been cheating on me with my own lawyer, a guy I trusted, a guy I thought was representing us both in some legal matter. How do you even process that? I mean, I knew Lisa was a bitch sometimes, but this was betrayal on a whole new level. I felt disgusted, angry, and so deeply hurt I did know what to do. The worst part was realizing she'd been lying to my face for months, all under the guise of legal strategy sessions. She'd been sneaking off for secret meetings, and I had no idea. She told me her lawyer was just helping with some international incident we were involved in, something about diplomatic immunity, whatever that means, while they were really doing something else entirely. I felt like I'd been played for a fool, and I didn't even know whether I should be more pissed at her or at myself for not seeing it sooner. At that moment, I knew I had to confront her, but I also knew that this was just the beginning. There was no way I could keep pretending everything was fine. I had to decide what to do next, whether to forgive, to fight, or to walk away. But one thing was clear. The woman I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone else entirely. And I was left standing there, devastated and furious, trying to piece together what the hell had just happened. The confrontation came sooner than I expected. I'd spent the next couple of days in a fog trying to process what I'd found, trying to decide if I should even talk to her at all, but I couldn't keep it bottled up forever. One evening I decided I couldn't wait any longer. I waited until she came home from what she called a legal strategy meeting, but I already knew better. I was going to get the truth, no matter how much she lied or how much she tried to spin it. She walked in, looking annoyed at first, then surprised to see me sitting on the couch. Her eyes immediately darted away, trying to avoid my gaze. I could see the flicker of guilt, the way her lips tightened, like she knew she was caught. I didn't waste time. I pulled out the phone with all the messages and pictures I'd uncovered. I laid it flat on the table between us. "Lisa," I said, voice trembling with anger and hurt, "who is James? Who have you been hiding from me?" She looked at the phone, then at me, and for a moment her bitchy mask cracked just a little. "That's none of your business," she snapped, trying to act like I was overreacting. "You're just paranoid, Mark. You're always accusing me of stuff." "I'm not paranoid," I interrupted. "I know exactly what this is. You've been cheating on me with my lawyer, haven't you? During those legal strategy sessions. How long has this been going on? How many times?" Her face turned red, but her tone stayed defiant. "You don't understand, Mark. That's just sex, okay? It's not a big deal. I was stressed, and he's just a guy. A guy, just a guy." "Lisa, you're lying," I said, my voice rising. "I saw the pictures. The texts, the explicit messages. You're cheating on me and you think I don't see that. How long have you been doing this?" She crossed her arms, her bitchy attitude bubbling back to the surface. "Look, you're overreacting. It's not what you think. That lawyer, James, he's just helping me with the case. Those sessions, they're all about legal stuff, nothing more. You're reading into it. You always do this, turn everything into some drama." I didn't buy it, not for a second. I was livid, but I also felt so betrayed that it was hard to breathe. She was lying through her teeth, trying to gaslight me into thinking I was crazy. Her excuses were pathetic and I could see right through her. I wanted to scream, but I held back. Instead, I said, "You've been lying to me for months. All those nights you said you were working late, all those strategy sessions that lasted until 2 a.m., you were with him. You've been sneaking around behind my back and I want the truth now." She huffed, rolled her eyes, and then with a sneer said, "You're just jealous. You're insecure. That's why you're making a big deal out of this. Honestly, Mark, I don't even see why you're so upset. It's just sex. You think I'm some kind of slut." That hit me like a punch to the gut. Her words cut deep, worse than I expected. I thought I knew her, but it turns out she's been playing me all along. The veneer of our marriage, our supposed trust, was completely shattered. I felt rage boiling inside me, mixed with a profound sadness I couldn't shake. How could she be so callous? How could she lie and dismiss it like it was nothing? And all the while, I was the idiot believing. We had a normal life. I remember sitting there staring at her, feeling like I was watching a stranger. The woman I married, the woman I loved, was gone, replaced by someone who clearly didn't care about me, only about herself and her little affair. I wanted to end it right then, to tell her to pack her stuff and get out, but part of me wanted to hear her say it first. I needed to know if she'd admit she'd crossed a line or if she'd keep spinning her web of lies. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything: her betrayal, her lies, the way she looked at me with that bitchy smirk. I felt sick, betrayed, and furious. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. How could I have missed all the signs? And what do I do now? That's what kept me awake, trying to figure out whether I could forgive, whether I even wanted to try, or if I should just cut my losses and leave before she completely destroys me emotionally. Whatever I decided, I knew one thing for sure: my life was never going to be the same again. The next few days were a blur of anger, confusion, and a kind of numbness I couldn't shake. I kept trying to piece everything together: how I missed the signs, how I'd been so blind. Every time I looked at her, I saw the lying, the sneaking, the flirtation she thought I didn't see. It made me sick to my stomach, but I knew I had to confront her again. I couldn't just let this slide. So I did what I thought I'd never do: decide to plan my revenge. Yeah, I know it sounds petty, but at that moment I felt like I needed to make her pay. Not just for cheating, but for how she'd humiliated me, lied to my face, and made me doubt myself. I wanted her to feel the same way I did: used, betrayed, and utterly powerless. I started by digging into her phone more, even going through her email account. She'd been clever about hiding things, but I found some deleted messages and hidden conversations in her trash bin. She'd been talking to James about meeting up, about covering their tracks, and even about faking alibis. I could see the planning, the sneaky smirks behind her words. It made me realize she'd been orchestrating this entire thing with the kind of cold calculation that made my blood boil. Then came the idea: I needed to hit her where it hurts, but subtly. I decided I'd record her, just in case I needed proof later. I got a tiny voice recorder app on my phone, hid it in my pocket, and started recording whenever she was around. I didn't want to do this, but I knew I had to have evidence if I wanted to do something more serious later. Plus, I wanted to catch her in the act if she slipped up again. One afternoon, she was home alone. She told me she was meeting with her firm, but I knew better now. She was probably with James. I waited until she was in the living room, sitting on the sofa, scrolling through her phone. That was my moment. I turned on the recorder, kept it discreet, and sat quietly, pretending to be engrossed in a magazine. What I heard was enough to make my stomach turn. She was laughing, flirting, calling him babe again, and talking about their plans for another strategy session that night. There was a lightness in her voice, like she was completely at ease, completely comfortable lying to my face. I sat there, listening, feeling my rage rising again. I knew I couldn't let her get away with this. I wanted to make her regret every lie, every betrayal. I decided I'd set a trap, one that would expose everything, and give me the leverage I needed to fight back or walk away with my dignity intact. I started drafting messages, planning how I'd confront her again, but this time with actual proof. I also reached out to the lawyer who was supposedly helping us with the international incident, my diplomatic immunity lawyer, as she called him. I knew that's where she'd hide her affair, since she'd always been obsessed with her legal work, and her strategy sessions had always been a cover for something else. I wanted to find out if there was more to their relationship, if their sessions involved anything illegal or just plain wrong. The thing about revenge, I realized, is that it's a double-edged sword. It made me feel powerful, but it also made me see how deep the betrayal ran. I was angry at her, yes, but I was also angry at myself for trusting her so blindly. I'd built so much into this marriage, years of good times, bad times, everything, and now it felt like it was all crumbling in just a few days. I knew I couldn't just confront her again without some solid evidence. I wanted her to see that I knew everything, that I wasn't going to be played anymore. I wasn't going to be the fool in this story. I kept thinking about what my next move should be. Should I demand she leave? Should I ruin her reputation? Or should I just walk away and let her go with her little affair? There was a part of me that wanted to destroy her, to make her pay for what she did. But another part, deeper down, just wanted to be done with this mess, to walk away and never look back. Still, I knew justice, real justice, meant more than just revenge. It meant making her understand she couldn't lie and cheat forever without consequences. That's what I was aiming for now. I wanted her to see what she lost, me, her husband, her partner, because she thought she could get away with it all. I was about to make sure she didn't. Over the next few days, I meticulously laid out my plan. I knew I couldn't just confront her blindly anymore. I needed proof that was undeniable, something that would leave no room for her to deny or spin her way out of. I continued recording her whenever she was home alone, capturing her flirtatious conversations with James, her dismissive tone when talking about us, and her blatant lies about legal strategies. The more I listened, the more convinced I was that I had enough evidence to do something drastic, but I also had to be smart. I didn't want to tip her off that I was onto her completely. So I started acting normal, pretending everything was fine, even though inside I was boiling. I still cooked dinner, went to work, and pretended to be the same husband she'd married. Meanwhile, I was gathering everything I needed, the recordings, the screenshots, her messages, and planning my move. One evening, she came home late again, claiming she had to stay at the firm for another strategy session. I watched her from the living room, pretending to read, as she slipped her phone out of her purse. I kept my eyes on her, waiting for her to slip up. Sure enough, her fingers lit up her screen and I saw her start typing. Instantly, I hit record again. This time I overheard her calling James babe, talking about how perfect their little secret was, and giggling about how she'd finally gotten away with it. That moment I knew I had enough. I was ready. I couldn't keep pretending I didn't know. I decided I'd confront her that night, but I wanted to do it with everything in my favor. I'd show her the recordings, the texts, everything. I wanted her to realize that I wasn't some naive fool anymore. I was serious, and I was done being her pawn. So I waited until she was lying on the couch, pretending to relax, and I sat down across from her. My heart was pounding, but I kept my voice calm. "Lisa, I've had enough," I told her. "I know everything. The texts, the calls, the meetings, everything. You've been cheating on me with James, haven't you?" Her eyes widened for a second, then she scoffed. "You're crazy, Mark. You're just jealous because I won't let you control me. I don't have to explain myself to you." I pulled out my phone and played the recordings I had made. Her face turned pale for a moment, then she tried to brush it off. "That's not what it looks like," she muttered, but her voice was shaky. "You're overreacting, you're just insecure." "No," I said sharply. "I'm not insecure, I'm betrayed, and you've been lying this entire time. I want the truth. Did you sleep with James? Were those strategy sessions really just cover for your affair?" She looked furious now, her bitchy attitude flaring up again. "You're such a control freak. I can't believe you're doing this, digging through my stuff, listening to my private conversations. I was just trying to work, that's all. You're making this into some drama because you're insecure and pathetic." I couldn't believe her. The way she lied, trying to minimize everything, made my blood boil. I realized then that she wasn't just a cheating wife. She was a manipulative, self-centered bitch who thought she could get away with anything. I stood up slowly, feeling the weight of everything crashing down on me. "I don't want to be with someone who lies to my face, who cheats and manipulates. I want you to leave, and don't bother trying to deny it anymore, you're caught." Her face twisted into a sneer. "Fine, if you want to play the victim, go ahead, but you're the one losing. I don't care. I'll get what I want regardless." That was the moment I decided I'd had enough. I told her to pack her things and leave that night. I couldn't see her anymore, not after what I'd found out. It hurt so much, but I knew I needed to cut ties before she completely destroyed me emotionally. I was done being the fool in her game. After she stormed out, I sat alone in the quiet house. It was strange, silent, empty, and I felt a strange mix of relief and devastation. I knew I wasn't just ending a marriage. I was ending a lie I'd believed in for years. I'd lost my wife, my trust, and a part of myself. I had no idea what came next, but one thing was clear. I'd be damned if I let her manipulate me again. That night, I promised myself I'd rebuild, even if it was just piece by piece. And I knew I'd never forget the sting of betrayal, how someone I loved could turn out to be so cold and willing to throw everything away for a quick fuck. The days that followed were pure chaos. I kicked her out, but honestly, I didn't sleep much that night or the ones after. Her stuff was gone by morning. She left in a hurry, probably realizing I had enough proof to make her life hell if I wanted. I stayed up all night, replaying everything. The lies, the betrayal, her bitchy attitude when I confronted her. I felt a strange emptiness, like a part of me had just been shattered completely. For a while, I didn't know what to do. I kept thinking about everything I'd lost: trust, companionship, what I thought was a future. I'd been blindsided, and it hurt worse than I expected. I felt stupid, angry, and betrayed. But a part of me also felt this strange sense of clarity. I realized that no matter how much I loved her, or thought I did, I couldn't stay in a marriage built on lies. I deserved better. I deserved honesty. I started to get my head straight, focusing on myself for once. I went out, saw friends, tried to distract myself from the pain. But in the back of my mind, I knew I couldn't just walk away without doing something about what she'd done. I wasn't about to let her walk over me like that. That's when I decided I was going to really make her regret her choices, on my terms. I reached out to a lawyer I knew from work, someone I trusted. I wanted to understand what legal options I had, especially given the international incident she referenced earlier, something about diplomatic immunity. I figured if she was involved with someone like James, there might be more to her story, maybe even some illegal dealings I hadn't yet realized. The lawyer told me that, depending on the evidence I had, I could pursue a divorce, ask for alimony, or even try to get some of her assets frozen if I found she was hiding money or property. But my plan wasn't just about legal moves. I wanted her to feel the sting of her betrayal. I started making calls, gathering evidence, more recordings of her talking about James, more screenshots of their messages. I even hired a private investigator just to cross-check her stories and see if she was still secretly communicating with him or anyone else. It turned out she was still secretive, still lying and still playing the same game. One thing I did that really hit her where it hurt was I leaked some of the evidence to her friends. Not publicly, but enough to get back to her. I wanted her to realize that her reputation was on the line if she didn't come clean or if she tried to spin her lies. I told her lawyer to prepare for the worst and made it clear I was serious about ending this mess for good. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me or continue her affair in secrecy. At the same time, I was hurt deeply. I trusted her, loved her, and believed in our marriage. Now I saw her for what she really was, a selfish, manipulative person who thought she could cheat, lie, and walk away unscathed. That realization made me furious. I'd been a naive fool for too long, but now I was done being the victim. I was taking control. I kept telling myself I'd get through it. I'd rebuild my life, even if it meant starting over alone. I wasn't sure what the future held, but I knew one thing: I was done with her. I was done with the lies and the betrayal, and I was finally ready to fight back, not just legally but emotionally. I owed myself that much. I had to prove to her and to myself that I wasn't some sucker who could be played forever. Honestly, I don't think I've fully processed everything yet. Part of me still feels broken, like I lost a huge part of my life. But another part knows I have to move on, even if it's slow. I realize now that I deserve honesty and respect, something she never really gave me, and I can only hope that someday I'll find someone who values me enough not to cheat, lie, or manipulate. For now, I'm just trying to pick up the pieces and figure out what comes next. Looking back, I honestly never thought I'd go through something like this. It's like I was living in some kind of nightmare I couldn't wake up from. The betrayal, the lies, the way she just tossed away everything we built, my trust, my respect, my marriage, it all feels like a punch in the gut every time I think about it. But even with all the pain, I've started to see things clearer now. I realized that I was giving her too much power for too long, and that's on me. No one should get away with that kind of betrayal and manipulation. The truth is, I've learned a lot from this experience, about trust, about betrayal, and about myself. I learned that sometimes the person you think you know isn't really who they seem to be, and that's a hard lesson. But I also learned that I can survive, even when everything seems to be falling apart. I've found a new sense of strength I didn't know I had. It's not easy to pick up the pieces after someone you loved turns out to be so fundamentally different from what you believed, but I know now I have to move forward. I don't dwell on the past much anymore. Instead, I focus on rebuilding my life, slowly, surely. I've cut ties with her completely, and I've started to reconnect with friends and family who remind me of who I really am. I've also started therapy because I know I need help processing everything I've been through. It's not about forgetting or forgiving her, at least not yet. It's about learning to forgive myself for trusting her so blindly and about healing. One thing I can say for sure is that I've become more cautious, more aware of what I want and what I won't tolerate. I refuse to let someone manipulate me again, and I refuse to settle for less than honesty and respect. I've realized that I deserve someone who values me, who understands that love isn't about lies or secret affairs, but about trust and mutual respect. To anyone out there going through something similar, I want to say this: trust your gut. Don't ignore the small signs because they might be warning you of something much worse. And if you find yourself betrayed, don't be afraid to stand up and fight for yourself. It's not weak to walk away from a toxic relationship. It's the bravest thing you can do. Because in the end, your happiness and integrity matter more than sticking around for someone who doesn't deserve you. This whole experience has shown me that sometimes you have to lose everything to realize what really matters. And honestly, I'm starting to feel like I'm finally beginning to find myself again, stronger, wiser, and ready to face whatever comes next. It's not the ending I imagined, but maybe that's okay. Sometimes life throws you a curveball and all you can do is catch it, learn from it, and keep moving forward.